Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be the carry tier list for patch 7.32D, and I just wanted to say really quick before we get into it that I haven't been making videos for the last couple months, been really busy with my life, but I'll be back making a lot more videos, probably ramping things up, and we're going to start off with the tier lists for this patch. We're going to start with the carry one and then do every single position throughout the week like I usually do. And as always, I get my stats and my information from like the trending tab here, the trends tab, Dota 2, Pro Tracker, Dota Buff, all that kind of stuff. I look at the DPC games, pretty much everything. And then I throw my opinion in there as well. And this is supposed to be kind of for pubs as well. It's not really like a pro meta and or anything like that. So I kind of do it more for pubs, less for pro meta stuff. So anyway, that is all the disclaimer stuff I wanted to say before we get into it. So let's just jump into the tier list. So the first two heroes I have here are Naga and Lark. So Naga basically, she has kind of just been on the upswing in the recent patches, and I think she just kind of became really the hero of the qualifiers. A lot of teams were picking this hero, especially in the NA qualifiers, but also a lot of other qualifiers as well. And she just seems to have gotten buffed recently, kind of just systematically, periodically buffed here and there with like different stuff to the Ags, all these different little aspects to her. And now she has pretty much done what she's always done as Naga, which is take control of the map, farm everything, make it really annoying if you get a good lead or if you get ahead to even like play the map at all, because she's split pushing every lane, pushing everything in, and she gets a ton of farms. She makes space for her allies to get a ton of farms. She just kind of suffocates you if she ever gets a little bit of a lead. And that's kind of what Naga has always done. It's just that she has more stuff that she can actually do now with the addition of the Ags and the healing and the ult and all these different little things that make her more of a diverse hero. She's not just doing that one thing. She also contributes to team fights more. All this little stuff that just makes her a better hero. She's been on the rise. Now I think she's kind of like topped out, peaked out based on a lot of the other heroes in the meta, obviously. But she's just very, very good right now. If you're a Naga hero or a Naga hero spammer or a Naga player, I think you can do really, really well this patch. I think she's actually always semi-viable in like lower MMRs because of the way she farms and carries late game and can do a lot of damage and all that kind of stuff. But this patch especially, she is very, very good for kind of all the reasons that Naga's always been good, like I said, but just a little bit of that extra stuff thrown in. Then we have Lark here. Lark has kind of been hanging around as one of the best heroes, one of the better heroes for a while now, actually. He kind of is on the upswing a little, and then he kind of falls off a little bit. He'll get buffed a little bit and then nerfed a little bit. He kind of goes back and forth, but he's always been hovering around that SA, B tier. And I think because a lot of other carries from TI and so on and so forth have been nerfed, a lot of those really good heroes were nerfed, and there wasn't a lot of stuff buffed. Lark has kind of just risen as one of the better carries in the patch. And I think he's always actually been pretty good in the last year or so, ever since they gave him a little bit of this extra stuff with the shard, with the pounce, and then with that change to pounce where it gives you stacks. He's always been semi-relevant because he can just like, participate. He can dominate lanes a little bit easier now with his better attack speed, his better regen, all this kind of stuff that he gets, where his Q doesn't do as much damage to him. All these little buffs that have happened over the course of the past year. Now he can lane really well. He can just transition into the mid game and just dominate the map. It's very hard to play against this hero if you're a support. You like can't split push against this hero, and this hero can split push you to death. He also just wreaks havoc in team fights if you have your shard and the pounces, and then God forbid he gets a refresher or something like that. It's so hard to deal with this hero at all. You have to have the right team coordination, the right ultimates, like a chronosphere. You have to have some way of dealing with this hero. Otherwise, he's just like saving his teammates, saving himself, pouncing in and out of fights. It's very annoying to deal with this hero. And I think he's just really, really good right now. In the past, when they nerfed his regen on his ult, and they kind of nerfed the duration of his stacks, his essence shift stacks, I thought, I didn't really like that because I'm a Lark player, as you can obviously see. But it just makes it so with the changes that they added, he's just kind of consistently good all throughout the game, where in the past there was just these big problems with the hero. I think now he deals with those problems, because before he didn't want to fight you 5-on-5. Well, now with his double pounces, his ultimate, and his shard, well, he kind of can fight 5v5 because he has this great AoE ultimate save thing, and that can just bail you out. If you need it extra in fights, you can bail out teammates. If you're not the one getting initiated on, which usually you shouldn't be, unless you're obviously diving the backlines or something like that. If your teammates get initiated on or something happens in the fight, you can bail them out with your with your Depth Shroud, and then you can just turn the fight completely with that. You can also use that extra ultimate. It's just another way. If you have that plus a BKB, it's just so hard to deal with you. And now you have all these little extra things, kind of like the Naga, like I said. All these little extra things that make you way harder to deal with in the game with the Shroud and with all these extra pounces. And then also especially with the fact that people are going for this, like, not straight Orchid Rush or anything, but they are eventually building silence on the hero with the Mage Slayer and all that, which just gives him a little bit of an even bigger spike to deal with, like someone like Zeus, for instance, let's say, doing magic damage through his ultimates and all that kind of stuff. Well, now he just kind of counters that because he gets even more magic resistance with the Mage Slayer. He gets even an even better way to deal with those kind of spellcasty heroes by not only just jumping on them, but then silencing them as well, making them do way less damage once he actually hits them. So there's all these little things that add up with this hero. I think he's pretty consistent. He's also kind of a pub stomper too. If you know how to play him correctly, he can be very, very good in pubs. So that is Slark. That's Naga. I think those are the two best heroes for this patch. Those are the two best carry heroes, just by win rate, by statistics, and how they're looking right now. Now, that isn't to say that these next heroes are terrible or anything, or way worse. In fact, I think you could make an argument based on your MMR, based on different statistics, how much success that you've had, that some of these heroes could actually be above Naga and Slark. I mean, I can see those arguments. I don't think it's like this patch there's one or two far and away winners. I obviously had to make an S tier and an A tier, so I just chose to do it this way, but I think you could make arguments for things to be switched around. I know personally I've had more success with Ursa than Slark. I really like Ursa right now because Ursa, you can build Battle Fury. I think you always should build Battle Fury on this hero because it just allows him to farm, scale really well into the late game, but you don't just go Battle Fury and then like into, 1-2 other items. Like, let's say you're a PA, you're an anti-mage, you build Battle Fury, but that's not enough. You need a Manta, you need maybe a Deso, BK, but you need these other things to actually participate. That's not Ursa. Ursa, yeah, he wants to farm his Battle Fury, but then basically once he gets his Battle Fury, he's good to go. He can just like buy a blink, participate in the fights, be very aggressive. He's also good at laning, so he can scale up in a really good way, or he can transition from the early game into the mid game into the later game. Like there's no real downtime for him. He can do Roche really early. Like he can do all of these things. There's no real weak part, especially when you're buying Battle Fury, except for maybe 10 to 15 minutes if you're finishing your Battle Fury sometime in there. But other than that, I mean, you get that blink quickly. You don't really have any downtime. You can jump on people. You do a ton of damage. You clear waves quickly if there's not like fights going on because of the Battle Fury. I think this hero really, really does well. The only weakness is, I think the only downtime is the fact that you don't hit towers. So you just constantly are killing people on the map. You can be like 15, 1 in 10 or something ridiculous, but they have all of their base, especially with the fact that there's, as you can kind of see here, there's a lot of ranged carries, a lot of ranged damage dealers, good high ground defense this patch. It can make Ursa a little bit weaker because if you mess up once or twice in the late game because you're not able to take racks very easily or towers very easily, you can kind of throw the game. So you just need to be wary of that, make sure you're getting Aegis, all that kind of stuff. And then I will say, there's that downtime is this kind of the spike, or not the spike, the down portion before the spike at 25. So you have this like portion from level 18, 19, 20 to 25, where once you hit 25, I think you can actually take towers really quickly by then, because you hit 25, you usually have another damage item because, you're buying Blink, you're buying BKB, you're buying Basher, this control stuff, this initiation stuff. And then once you have that, then you might buy MKB, you might buy more damage, things like that actually help you take towers quicker, plus you get that 25 talent that allows you to do way more Fury swipes, so you can just get a ton of hits on the tower, and then you can actually take the base, but that's obviously super late game. So you just have to be careful with that hero once it goes later, but I think he is still very, very powerful. Hard to bring down, burst people down, that kind of stuff. Ursa's very good. Faceless Void, there's actually not too much to say about this hero. This hero has been kind of on the top of the carry meta for a long time. He was S tier, I think, for a while, then kind of came down, was just kind of floating around A tier. He's always been really good recently. I think the nerf to like Refresher and stuff kind of hurt the hero. It took him from S tier, and also I think they nerfed like his jump and stuff, his shard a little bit. It wasn't much though. It just took him from S tier down to very good, and I think he just kind of stayed there for a while now. He does all the typical stuff that Faceless Void has done for the last year, with his Chronosphere, with his good farming, with his ability to just take people down in the late game. Especially, you can still buy Refresher Orb. It's just with the shard and the Refresher Shard from Roche and the Refresher Orb and that mana problem that he would have now. It just makes him not as good, but it's still a huge threat. into the late game. So this hero just does all the same things that Void has always done. It's just that he's kind of hovering around. So if you look back at any of my other tier lists from that past year, Void's probably been there, and he's still up here for the same reasons. He hasn't really been nerfed very hard. Next we have Clix. Another hero that I would say, like personally, I would say I really like Clix. He's a hero that I have a lot of success with. I think he's really, really good. It's just that he's probably better in a little bit of a lower MMRs. Like he's not as good maybe in Immoral or whatever, but I think he really is a pub stompy hero. I prefer him to Naga and Lark, but it's just statistically it's not as good. And I kind of see why. Like, I don't think it's a hero for everybody necessarily. I just really like the play style. I think this hero is very good now that they finally changed, or that they did change the way his barrage works early on. So you're getting a lot more. I think you're getting the full amount of volleys. It just doesn't do as much damage. The cooldown is higher. So you're still maxing that and stuff. It just, you can actually use it in lane now. You can use it to secure CS. You can use it to harass if, there's a stun or something like that. You can just use it way more in the lane, where in the past, before they buffed that part, this hero felt really weird because you needed to max out barrage, and that was your farming tool, but it just was worthless in the laning stage because, the first level, there was only 3 arrows and it did like no damage, so it was just pointless. So you just kind of were putting points in this ability that really didn't help you at all. Now you can finally actually use it in the lane. And then really this hero, if you're allowed to have a good laning stage and you can get to your Maelstrom timing and farm, and your team doesn't completely lose the game before you get a few items before you basically get your Gleipnir, this hero can just honestly win the game straight out. You can literally 1v9 the game. Even if you are losing, let's say it's 15 to 20 minutes in the game and your team is just getting absolutely decimated. You can literally come back and 1v9 the game with this hero because you're just running around invis, super max speed or whatever, clearing, split pushing all the lanes. You can cut waves if the enemy is pushing. And then if you ever get to that point, which you almost certainly should because you're very good at delaying the game, if you ever get to the point where you have a Daedalus and you get BKB, Daedalus, you get Scotty, you potentially get Sheepstick to sheep the carry, you can literally kill any hero on the enemy team in a single burning barrage because you'll get that level 20 talent where you do even more arrows during burning barrage, and then 25 where you do even more damage with that. You will just melt entire teams. You will melt any hero. This hero is absolutely ridiculous when it scales in the late game and gets a bunch of items. And if you have any kind of ability on your team that stuns the enemy, makes them group up in an AoE, anything that does that, and you hit a burning barrage on 2 to 3 heroes, they're all dead. They're just entirely dead. You can wipe the entire enemy team, basically solo carry the game by yourself. This hero is just absolutely insane if you get to that point. And I think the reason why it's so good now is because you are way more reliable to get to that point. Like I said, the laning stage is a little better as long as you don't get crushed early game, and then you can even delay the game, all that kind of stuff. Very good hero. Overall, I think it's a very good pub stompy hero. Drow, as we see, another ranged carry hero. We have a bunch of ranged ones here up in the A tier. Drow is, I would say, a ranged carry hero, kind of like Clix, but not really. I feel like they have similar aspects where they have this ability in lane to use their frost arrows or the searing arrows for Clix to harass, all that kind of stuff. They're ranged. Obviously, they can sit back. They're a little safer. Drow's just a little bit different because Drow's not this annoying pick-off split pushy hero. Drow is more like Sniper in the fact that you have to be with your team. You have to sit back. You can be alone. You can get solo pick-offs, with your silence mid-game before people get Manta or BKBs. So you are dangerous in that way. But you do have to rely on your team a little bit more. So it's not just a solo carry hero because you really don't want to get jumped on. You really have to rely on positioning. You are pretty slow. Obviously, you can have a Manta, you can get your Hurricane Pike to get out of sticky situations, but still, you need to rely on your team a little bit more. And because of that, I don't love the hero totally. But if you can snowball the game, if you have a good game, if your team's having a good game, and you group up, this hero can be very, very hard to deal with. You do insane damage. If there's nobody on the enemy team to jump you, even if your team sucks, you can then carry the game. It's just if you have to spend your time running away from people, getting out of the clockwork hook shot or waiting for the void or the storm or whoever it is, if you have to wait for them and you can't really show, but then when you do, they just jump you, it just feels very awkward. There's not much you can do about that. Obviously, you have your silence, but then people are eventually going to get BKBs, and it just feels very awkward to play this hero from time to time. But if the enemy doesn't have a good draft against you, and if your team's playing good and you get an advantage, you can just snowball the game and absolutely destroy. You do insane damage late game. I think ranged carries are also very good in general this patch, especially in the laning stage. It just feels like any of these heroes that have these abilities to either buff up their right click or do something from long range like SF, which we're going to talk about in a second, it just feels like they dominate the lane so much. It's so hard to play these offlaners. I feel like so many offlaners have been nerfed recently because offlaners were kind of becoming the new carry. Obviously with ATF playing like carry from the offlane, just seems like every time offlaners become good, whether it's, Brood or whoever it is, they just get nerfed into oblivion because they're so OP. So now you don't really have too many strong offlaners, and now these range carries are just really taking advantage of every single offlaner in the lane. It's just so hard to play offlane, honestly, these days, unless you're really good at it, have a good matchup, that kind of stuff. But it's very hard to have good matchups against some of these heroes unless you're able to really get on top of them quickly because they are squishy. So anyway, that's Drow, and then we can move on to Shadow Fiend, which is similar to these other ranged carries in that you do kind of the same kind of stuff, honestly, except instead of like buffing up your right click with some kind of thing that doesn't make you aggro the creeps, you just have your raises in the lane. Like, this hero is ridiculous. Ever since they added the slow and the turn rate slow, you're like Shadow Rider, Bat Fiend, or whatever you want to say. Like, it has like Bat Rider's sticky napalm, but on his shadow raises. It's absolutely ridiculous. In the laning stage, you would just like melt people. If the offlaner gets too close to you at all, like, they're just done. If your ally, if your 5 position has a stun, like, they just can't walk up to the lane. Like, they have to be so insanely careful. They almost have to like pull the lane from behind because it's so hard to walk up to this hero. You just buy a bunch of mangoes, spam it out. So you're almost like guaranteed to get farm. And then as a range carry, you have the same, you're doing the same thing that all the other range carries do, in that you're just kind of sitting back. As long as you don't get jumped on, you're fine. And even this hero, you have insane attack speed later on. You have insane damage. Like, once you buy Satanic and BKB and stuff, it almost doesn't matter if you get jumped on. Like, Clix doesn't like to get jumped on. Drow obviously doesn't like to get jumped on. Neither does Sniper. This guy, I mean, yeah, he doesn't love to get jumped on, but he can really man fight you way better than a lot of other range carries. Like, this guy's very scary. And then once he gets the raises that add attack damage, he's not only just clicking you down, but then he's using his ultimate and he's just blowing you up, pretty much blowing up every hero. It's kind of ridiculous what this hero can do. It's also kind of a mid laner, so I think you can play it from mid, you can play it from carry. I would say I always prefer it to be a mid laner in some ways, but he's still very, very good as a carry. But just doing kind of Shadow Fiend things, and I think some of these carries that either have been consistently buffed or haven't been nerfed at all, like I was saying, Naga, like Shadow Fiend, they're just getting these buffs and they're not getting nerfed. And so because a lot of other carries are getting nerfed, they're just kind of on the rise. And they're just kind of naturally floating to the top because a lot of other things are getting nerfed. Next, we have Nature's Prophet. I think this hero, ever since they gave this hero the root talents, it just has been a decent carry, like almost more of a carry than an offlane or a support or anything like that, especially once they took away this ability to like spawn greater treants and split push. Now it's almost exclusively a carry. But it's just another one of these range carries. And it's just very hard to deal with this hero. You still split push. You still get a lot of farm on the map. But I think this like map control, like with Naga, is super important. And the thing I was driving at is the 20 talent, I believe, with the root on the Sprout. It was broken. It is broken. It's like been broken. I think people just kind of underestimate it, or people don't play Nature's Prophet very well, or it can be very awkward to have this hero on your team. Sometimes it looks terrible. But I think like people are just bad, honestly, because that level 20 talent is absolutely broken. It's one of the most broken things in the game right now, to be honest. Probably like top 5. And I just think if you get to the point where you're level 20 and you have items on this hero and your team isn't getting absolutely destroyed and you can split push, you can show in lanes, all that kind of stuff, like it's so hard to lose with this hero. He just is so OP. So people just make horrible mistakes and aren't good with him, but I think he's honestly just insane hero. If you know how to play him, he's just really, really good. And then lastly, we have Lone Druid. I would put these two heroes kind of in a similar vein where it's like if you're a good Lone Druid player, you're a good Nature's Prophet player, you can play these heroes and do really well. Lone Druid has, for months, for maybe a year or so, just kind of floated on the top, like I was saying. He's just kind of risen to the top, stayed at the top. He hasn't been S tier, maybe he has here and there, but he's just always been good. Like, he hasn't really been nerfed at all. He's just been consistent and good. It's just that nobody plays this hero, really. There's like a select few people that are good with Lone Druid, and that's their hero, and that's who they like to play. And if you're one of those people, you can use this hero to like spam out MMR and just gain a ton of MMR, because he is very good. He's hard to deal with. He's unkillable with his ult. All the typical Lone Druid stuff, just melts towers. I think this hero does, now with Tiny like being nerfed with his tower damage and being like a terrible carry now and not really being a carry anymore since they destroyed that build, I think Lone Druid Bear is like, I don't know that there's any other hero in the game that melts towers as fast. Maybe like Luna, I guess. I don't know. But this hero just absolutely melts towers. A lot of players, even at low MMRs, my MMR, they don't understand just hit the bear. I feel like nobody knows that, but people just don't do it. And then you're just allowed to run around with your bear and just absolutely annihilate people. I think really the only time this hero doesn't feel great is if they focus the bear and they can kill the bear quickly. If they have like a lot of physical damage or whatever that can just kill the bear. I mean, you do have ways later on to deal with that with the Wraith Band thing, but still, like if they can kill the bear and they know what they're doing, yeah, sure, it's not going to feel great late game, but you can even push early game. You can take racks super early and you're going to be decent into the late game anyway, unless the team's very coordinated and good. So that's Lone Druid. If you're a Lone Druid player, definitely consider spamming this hero because he's been pretty good for a while now. Next, we have B tier. So all these heroes are pretty good. There's not anything wrong with them necessarily, but they're not great. Like, for instance, Anti-Mage, like, he's good. The stats say he's good. He's definitely on the uptrend. They keep giving him little buffs here and there. He's actually kind of like a lane dominator almost right now. But he still has similar Anti-Mage problems like he always has. Like, you still are going Battle Fury. You're still going Manta after that. So you might have a good laning stage, but there are matchups where you have a bad laning stage, and if you don't know how to take advantage of the hero, and if you don't have a support on your team that's actually allowing you to take advantage of the mana burn and, you know, the strengths of the laning stage, you still might have a bad laning stage, and then you're still kind of farming for 20 minutes plus. Like, it just, the hero still has this downtime in the mid game where you just don't do anything. Even if you had a good laning stage, it's eventually going to fall off, and the mana burn isn't going to be as good, and you're going Battle Fury. It still feels not that great, because like every other hero on this list, think about it: Slark aggressive, Ursa aggressive, Void Chronosphere, Clix can still, even though he's farming, he can still show up to a fight and do a lot of damage. Like Drow with the silence can hit people, Shadow Fiend is ult and his raises, Naga splitting the map and just taking so much farm, but really hard to deal with the split push and just suffocating you. Anti-Mage is just kind of like hitting camps and doing nothing. Like, unless there's a storm where you're blowing somebody up with the ultimate, it's just, that's the problem with the hero. And I think that's why the hero has sort of never been, even if he's been okay or decent, he's never been like top tier. He's never really been picked that much in the pros because, I mean, he was maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, but really recently, or maybe it's almost been 10 years now. But I think he suffers from just a fundamental problem where he can only go one build. And until that changes, I don't see him getting much higher than B tier unless he's really, really OP for some weird reason. So that's Anti-Mage. Next, we have Lifestealer. I think Lifestealer is probably the solid hero of the patch. Not amazing, not horrible. You can get away with picking him. He just is like decent. He's just a decent, good, average, consistent carry hero. He suffers from some stuff. He has some lanes that are pretty bad, but he has other lanes where he crushes and some games where he just feels unstoppable, unkillable, does insane damage. I don't think there's anything super special about the hero. I know that Liquid and Matu played him a lot in TI, and I think people are, and I don't want to like brag or say, oh, I'm so smart or I'm like this pro player, but I often thought that why don't people get the shard on this hero? I thought the shard was pretty good, and it ends up being that, someone finds out the shard is good. Matu uses it all the time, and I think that's one of the big things that has kind of put the hero back into relevance is now you can get this shard at 15 minutes. It gives you another ability, gives you a lot of lifesteal, makes you harder to kill, and gives you a slow, gives you another way to like just get on top of people. I think that really helped the hero get back into the meta, because without the shard, sometimes it can just feel super awkward, like you're just stuck. You don't have a good way of initiating. You don't have a good way of locking people down because you can get kited easily, and they, obviously you're slowing them if you hit them, but you can't even get to hit them because they just run away or, whatever it is. You don't have good initiation. But now you have the shard. You can, press your shard on somebody. Now they can't get away. Like, even if they force staff, you can run them down. And then if there's anybody near them trying to save them, then the shard gets like, as you hit them, when the shard is applied to them, when the open wounds is applied to them, it goes to the other player. So there's a support next to the carrier, whoever you're going on, then it transitions to them, then you can run them down. It's just a good snowball way of like affecting the hero, and I think that's one of the main things that has brought the hero back into the meta. Otherwise, you're just kind of doing Lifestealer things, the same stuff that the hero has always done. Terrablade, I think Terrablade is kind of like the, I guess you could say, discount Naga, because they're very similar, obviously illusion heroes. I think PL is not very good right now as an illusion hero. Just has been in a bad place for a long time. And then Terrablade is not as good as Naga because Naga is just way more annoying with choking in the map. Terrablade isn't as much of a choke in the map kind of hero, and the big weakness to this hero is the ultimate. So a lot of these heroes, if you notice, like if we just look at it, I think Faceless Void is probably one of the only ones, if not the only one, that has like this long cooldown ultimate that you have to play around. Every other hero has like, you just can fight constantly. Like even Naga, right? Naga's ultimate obviously is good for fighting, but it's not like the thing that makes the hero fight. It's like this save. It allows you to split push. It allows you to reset the fight. It allows you to save allies, all that kind of stuff. But it's almost like the ideal situation in a fight is that you're just crushing it so hard. You don't even have to press your R. You don't even have to press your ultimate. You just win the fight because of good initiations. You're super far ahead. You just net somebody and, kill them, that kind of stuff. Where Terrablade is just more, you have to have your ultimate. There's a big weakness when it's down mid-game if you don't use it right, if you don't coordinate around your team. Obviously, if you're able to use it, you're able to defend towers, your team isn't losing that hard, there's a lot of stuns on your team that you can, hit people while they're locked down, this hero can be great, but it has this big gaping weaknesses that make it not like S. If it didn't have that insane weakness with the cooldown, it's not necessarily a weakness because it is a big strength. It's just kind of like a trade-off. Like you're using your ultimate now. Well, it's not your ultimate, but you're using your ability now to be very strong. And then that window where you're weak, you can really be taking advantage of if you don't have the coordination on your team to make sure that your ultimate, I keep saying ultimate because it kind of is, but that your metamorphosis is the spike and you're using it effectively and all that kind of stuff. And that's really harder to do, especially in lower MMRs. Next, we have Sniper. Sniper is a hero that some people think should probably be A tier. And I wouldn't really argue. I definitely think it could be a ranged hero that's up here in A tier. But personally, I just don't love the hero as a carry. I just think it's B. I think it's good. Don't get me wrong. I think you could argue, like I said, that it's A tier, but I just don't think it's as strong as these other heroes because it's still, despite all the buffs, all the little changes, it still has all the same weaknesses that it used to in the sense that, at least Drow has a silence. At least Clix has invis. At least Shadow Fiend has his ultimate and these raises. Nature's Prophet can TP in and out, Yes, as Sniper, you have your Shard. Yes, you have, you're buying Hurricane Pike. Yes, you have the ability to man fight people when you activate, take aim, but it's just still the same problem. If you get jumped on by any, like if a Sniper, if an Ursa jumps the Sniper, if the Faceless Void jumps the Sniper, if you can see them, the Lark jumps you, you still have the same problem. And it can just feel really, really annoying to have to rely on your teammates that much where you have pretty much no control. Like the only thing you're offering to the fight in terms of control is just like vision with the shrapnel and a little bit of slow. That's really it. And so it can just feel really bad to play this hero in some situations. That's why I put him B tier, because I think I actually think this is one of the heroes that the higher MMR you go, the better he is, because you're going to be playing with more coordinated teams that understand how to play around Sniper. But the lower MMR you go, I don't know, I feel like maybe really low MMR he's good. Kind of middle MMR, he's bad, and then higher MMR, he's good. Lower MMR, he's good because people just don't jump him. He just sits back there and he just kills everybody. Higher MMR, people understand how to coordinate around him. In the mid kind of tier MMRs, people understand jump Sniper, but then teammates, they're not coordinated. They don't understand how to protect the Sniper or initiate for him, have the right vision. People are worse with positioning and spell casting, and so I think it can just be this kind of trap pick where it's decent, but it's not the best. And then lastly, for B tier, we have Ark Warden. I think Ark Warden is kind of like the cheesy, if you're an Ark Warden spammer, you can spam this hero. He's the kind of cheesy one that's right in the middle. He's average, he's decent, he's good. I think he was on the upswing, and then I think I don't remember, I'm not really an Ark Warden player. I kind of forget if they nerfed him a little bit, but I think they changed something in the most recent patch. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought they did. But I just feel like I was seeing him a bunch. And then I haven't seen him recently. I don't know. That's just kind of my feeling. It's my gut feeling is that he was pretty good, and then suddenly people just stopped playing him. Maybe the meta changed. There was something about the heroes that got better. I don't really know. I almost prefer this hero as a mid as well. Obviously you can play carry, but for whatever reason, I just like the fact that you can get in mid, you can just get your items quicker. You can just get a lot of levels faster. You get your ultimate, which you can use to farm. I just like it as a mid better. I always have. Even though obviously farming mids, it's one of those weird things, especially now with the small camp gone. It's not really as viable, but I just prefer this hero as a mid. And if you know how to play this hero mid, you can honestly dominate mid lanes and just like solo kill people sometimes if you know what you're doing and they're bad or they're not used to playing Ark Wardens. So that's Ark Warden. I don't think there's anything crazy new about Ark Warden. He's just kind of your typical run-of-the-mill, cheesy Ark Warden player pick, and he's just decent right now. Next, we have C tier. This is probably like your below average, but still pickable tier. We have Razor. I'm not really going to talk too much about Razor right now. I'll talk about him more as an offlaner because he actually has come back into the meta with a new build, despite not even really receiving very many buffs. But he's not really a carry. So I'm putting him in C tier because he's a good hero. He's getting picked a lot, but he's not really getting picked as a carry, so I wouldn't pick him as a carry. That's the same thing with Riki. Riki is a hero that has been picked a good bit. He is kind of popular right now, but he's not a carry necessarily. Now, he is played as carry. You still can pick him. He's still pretty good, but he's getting played in other positions, so I'm just putting him as a C tier carry. Next, we have Luna. Nothing crazy special about Luna. You can get away with picking the hero. It's just not great. Farms really quickly. I think in lower MMRs, you can just get really fat on this hero and dominate and take towers and all this kind of stuff. Just kind of this average, good farming hero. But there's nothing crazy special about this hero, honestly. Specter, this sort of similar, just like an average, decent, but not great carry. I think there are games that are very good. So I think Specter's very good against heroes like maybe Sniper or Drow, which you want to get on top of them if you have the right heroes. But this hero suffers from almost like a similar anti-mage style thing where you just need like 1, 2, 3 items and then you finally have impact. Like in the very beginning of the game, you're really just farming. You might press R here and there, but you're not doing that much. And so you do have this kind of weakness. You're also laning stage is super passive. You're really not going to be that aggressive. Like even if you want to be and you're doing some kind of crazy build, you're going to rely on your support to understand this, and it's just not going to happen. So you have a weak laning stage. You just farm for the first 20 minutes. I think that's the big weakness of the hero. And then once you get your ags and stuff, I think you can do a lot of damage and you can be very good. But you also have to be in a position in the game where your ags is valuable. You know, you're able to go to split push or not split push, but pick people off that are alone, that kind of stuff. So overall, good situationally, but not the best. Phantom Lancer, I think, is the worst of the illusion heroes. I think it's still viable, but it's just not as good. It just doesn't function in the same way that the other illusion heroes do. It's just like a weird illusion hero. It's like a specialized illusion hero that is only good in certain situations. Now, I will say this. There's nothing special about the Phantom Lancer that I'm going to like talk about in a way of like there's something to change about him. He's just kind of the same Phantom Lancer that he's always been. But I will say I just have this feeling that like the next patch, maybe the, 7.33 or 7.34, whatever. I feel like one of these patches here is going to be the PL patch because we haven't had a PL patch in a while. And I just have this feeling he's just kind of hanging around down there, like waiting for his time to be amazing. And it's going to be so annoying when this hero becomes like S tier. Because I just have this feeling one of these patches is going to shoot up to S tier and we're going to be like, oh God, Phantom Lancer so annoying. Because I still think he's viable if you know how to play him, but he's just not OP. Sven, decent. It was getting picked as like a support for a while there because of the buffs, like the armor buffs, but that kind of went away a little bit. They nerfed that a little bit. And otherwise, this hero's just like, it's okay. It's just kind of run of the mill. I don't love it, but it's decent. There's nothing special or super different to talk about with Sven. He just kind of is what he is. But it's with a lot of these heroes that were really bad. I think Sven was pretty bad for a while because a lot of other stuff got nerfed. He's kind of just like risen to C tier by just not getting nerfed and not being terrible, basically. He's just okay. Monkey King, just okay. Nothing crazy about Monkey, I don't think. Again, he's kind of, I think a lot of the carries in this tier just kind of like have just stayed the same. There's nothing that changed about them, so they're definitely viable, but they're not like god-awful terrible. That's the same thing with Chaos Knight. He was like an offlaner. He was really good, and then they nerfed him a bunch here and there, and now he's just kind of sitting down here at C. He's pickable. He's decent. If you know how to play him, if you're good with him, he's okay. I know people are building ags with him now, and that's decent. That's a viable strategy, but it's nothing special. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing amazing. Bloodseeker, good against very specific lineups. I think he's another hero that is maybe not like PL, but similar, where I feel like he's just like ready. Like people like really are trying to force this hero into the meta, and I feel like he's going to get there. Like he's going to be A, B, S tier or something. He's going to be something. They just have to tweak this hero and figure out how to actually make it work, because it just feels very awkward. Like there's parts of the game with this hero where it doesn't feel right. Like the skills, like the Ags is completely useless. The Shard is better than the Ags. Like there's just things like that make it awkward and weird. It's like the design of the hero, I think, is wrong. So they're tweaking it here and there constantly. I think, 1 or 2 more tweaks, if they get things right, if they make the Ags better, or they change it completely, then I think maybe this hero we could see pop up into the meta being very good. I still see people picking it here and there. I think maybe this is one of these heroes that I've put lower than maybe like pros would say Bloodseeker's a little bit better, but in pubs, man, I just don't see this hero doing well, like ever. Like no one's picking it. It just feels so bad. I just honestly don't see it doing very well. Marcy's gotten nerfed a lot. I still think you can play this hero, and it's still pretty good. As a carry, I don't really see it very much, but you can carry games with it. It still does kind of the same thing where you buy BKB and Basher and all that kind of stuff. It's just not as good of a hero, I think, as it was. But I think as a carry, it's kind of the same, because what they nerfed about the hero was a lot of like the laning stage and your ability to jump on people and whether you were actually going to be able to reliably stun them and all that kind of like utility stuff. That's what they nerfed about the hero. But they didn't nerf the I'm just going to punch you in the face and you're just going to die and all I have is a BKB. That really wasn't nerfed. And so that's what you do as a carry. You just get this BKB, you get this Basher, you get these items and you're just still the same hero. So if you can play the hero and do well with that, it's still very good. It's just not like amazing. Like you're not going to pick Marcy all the time and just win every game with it. TA is a semi-ranged hero, which is like why you would think it would be up here, but it's just fallen off. I think all of these other ranged heroes that are like, ranged damage dealers are just way better than TA. TA had her time to shine in the meta. She was there for a long time, and now she's kind of fallen off. I just think all the other ranged heroes are better. This hero farms very quickly, but doesn't... the laning stage, she doesn't have that thing that a lot of these other heroes have in the laning stage that makes her really annoying in lane. Like her lane is kind of more passive, and she's able to like push it out and dominate, but she's more of like a passive farmer, at least in the beginning. And then she can do really well. She's very physical damage based, but she doesn't really have much utility other than like maybe the slow here and there. I still think she's viable. She's still pretty good. If you're a good TA player, you can still play her, but I just don't think she's that great of a carry right now. And then lastly for C tier, we have Pudge. Pudge is just kind of chilling. He's gotten nerfed here and there because he was really good. I still think he's a viable carry. If you can have games on this hero where you snowball out of control, in the right matchup, against the right lineup, in the right lane, where you really snowball and you're a good Pudge player, you can honestly dominate games. This hero is still able to dominate games. It's just not as good as it once was. So that's why it's sitting here in the middle of the pack, C tier, similar to Specter, Luna, some of these other like Sven, Monkey, Chaos Knight. You can think of Pudge like that. You can think of Pudge just like your average decent carry. If you have a really good game, it's a really good matchup, like I said, dominate with the hero. Not much has changed. It just kind of the numbers have been nerfed a little bit, so it's not as OP as it once was. But thankfully, we see actually now Pudge being actually a real hero, which is cool. I always like that Pudge is like a real hero. And I don't want to see it like disappear back into F tier status and be absolutely awful. I'm glad that it's kind of just sitting here. Like, people get annoyed when it's really good because it's picked all the time. I like that it's like viable and it's decent. You can have decent games, but it's also terrible sometimes, but it's like still pickable. I like that. And I think it's good for the game. So then D tier here, we have Troll. Troll has been picked. Its win rate's actually pretty decent, but I'm just a Troll hater. I actually like playing the hero. I enjoy the hero, and I think it's a fun hero in some ways, but I'm a Troll hater, and I just think they need to change the ult. I hate the ult. It's never going to be good with the ult. People are trying to force it into meta. I think what's really telling about the hero is people are trying to pick it. It's getting picked here and there. People are like, oh, this could be a good Troll game, but for whatever reason, it's still not breaking into the meta. It still doesn't have that good of like statistics because the ultimate is so bad. Like, I think if you literally just changed the ultimate and made it not like, and you could control the hero, like, or you just changed the ultimate back to what it used to be in the past, where your whole team just got attack speed or whatever, including yourself, like, this hero would be broken. This hero might be like S tier. It's just because the ultimate is so bad, you just can't play the hero. Like, you just get stuck in these terrible situations. And so I'm just putting it at D tier, even though it maybe could be C, maybe even B potentially. It's just the ultimate's so bad, I refuse to put it higher. Morphling, I think, is like a pub stompy hero. I'm surprised that the statistics on this hero are so bad. I don't play this hero very much, so I'm not that good of a Morphling player, so maybe there's something else I'm not seeing with the hero, but I do think the Ags is really good. I saw people like picking up Ags pretty early. You would just Ags morph into one of the agility carries or their agility carry, and then they would be like not able to click people, so I still think that's viable. There's something about Morph. Maybe it's just because of the silences and the control and all the stuff, the pace of the game from a lot of these heroes. It just maybe isn't viable, and it's not good against a lot of the matchups. Alchemist, it's not an Alchemist patch. This hero's still okay. Like, it's not like F tier by any means. You could actually get away with picking it, but it's just not good. Dawnbreaker has been nerfed, kind of like Marcy. It's just been nerfed a lot. And I think it's more of an off lane now. It's not really a carry. It just doesn't feel like you can carry games as hard. In the past, like maybe a few patches ago, 6 months ago, it felt like you could just dominate games and carry them outright, but not really anymore with Dawnbreaker. Wraith King is just in a weird spot. Its win rate is absolutely horrible. I felt like it would probably be a little bit better because the skeleton change. Actually, I think the skeletons like do extra damage or have more attack speed or something when they're attacking your stun target. And so I think people are maybe underestimating how good that is in lane. But still, I think they nerfed the ultimate. They changed the skeletons. They just changed some weird things about the hero. The hero was like pretty decent for a long time, and then they changed some stuff like the ultimate being 60 seconds. And I think that late game, like 60-second cooldown instead of like 40 on your ultimate, it's just so... Like that 20 seconds is such a big deal for like pushing high ground and stuff. And I think that's really what hurts the hero and makes it bad. Also, there's a lot more heroes these days that can deal with the skeleton split push. I feel like they just keep giving heroes like farming tools and abilities to do like AoE damage. So these skeletons, like it's a lot rarer that you're going to get a matchup where you can just spam skellies and they can't do anything. Weaver, just not a good carry. I just think not a great hero right now. Ever since they changed the shard on the hero, it kind of fell off as a support. It's maybe a better carry with the shard, sort of, I guess, but it's just not good. It's just not great. There's no control. It's like a ranged carry like these other ones are, but it has no control. It's just kind of like think about this. You're a Weaver, right? Wouldn't you just rather be a Clix? Like you both have invis. This guy's just like running around with like the same move speed. You're just doing way more damage as Clix. Like you can split push way more. The Shikuchi is like only a short duration, where this invis is like a million years long. It's just there's things about the hero that just feels like everything it does, another hero does way better. And that's just kind of where Weaver's at. I think there's just something weirdly fundamental about the hero that needs to be changed. And then Jug is probably like the worst, obviously other than the F tier, which are just absolute dog poo heroes. But Jug is like the worst it's been in a while, to be honest. It had the spin shard build. That was the only thing that was like keeping it alive. And then they nerfed that again. And now it just feels like terrible. This hero just doesn't feel good at all. Like you want to still go that like Maelstrom shard build, but it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like you kill anything, and you just feel like you die quickly, and then you're not going to go Battle Fury on the hero. Like that's not really a item that anybody other than Anti-Mage and Ursa build. Like no one's building Battle Fury these days. And so the hero's just in a really bad spot, I think. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about the hero other than just Jug is usually mid-tier, but just the win rate is terrible. It feels very bad to play. I think it's just with all the other heroes, I think it just has terrible matchups right now. And then lastly, we have F tier. PA, I think this hero can actually carry like lower MOR games. Like it's pretty good late game, but it's kind of suffers from the anti-mage problem in some ways, but almost like worse. Like it's super passive in lane. You can have some lanes where you dominate, but like that's only because the players are bad. And then you're just farming your Battle Fury. You're farming Battle Fury, then Deso, then BKB, or maybe you're skipping Deso and then you're getting BKB, but then you have to fight without a Deso, and it just feels so bad. Like you need 3 items plus, and then if you can get there and you're not losing the game, which is definitely possible in low MMRs, then sure, yeah, then you can win. But if you just don't get there, or you're not able to get there, you have a bad lane, whatever it is, it just feels so bad. Like you just have no impact. And so that's PA. Medusa, it's almost the same thing as PA, honestly. You're just too passive. Like all these other heroes, way more active, way better range carries. Like this hero just kind of sits back and farms and goes to the jungle. That's just really not how you play these days. Like at least like something like Luna has like an ultimate that you can contribute. You have a stun or like a mini stun. You can do something. Like this hero just doesn't do anything without farm. And just with the way that the triangle now only has 2 camps, it's not really a triangle anymore. It's more just the straight line. It just, that nerfs the hero a lot. So yeah, it's not good. Gyro has not been a carry forever. I feel like it's been so long since this hero's been a carry. I think it's still possible that it could come back as a carry. People just like to play it more as a support, and I think that's where it is now. Maybe it's just going to be there for a long time permanently. I don't know. Tiny is a very good hero. Tiny has been a very good hero for a long time. It's just not a carry. The carry build is done, gone, forever, like gone to the wayside or disappeared because of the way that they nerfed the attack speed and all that kind of stuff. I think it's actually a very good hero in the mid and the forward position roles. Mainly mid, but still, you can maybe even get away with offlane. But carry, just not a carry. So don't pick this hero as carry. And then Bristleback, very bad spot as a hero. It's kind of more of a carry than an offlane these days, and it's just a very bad carry. There's a lot of things to counter. It just doesn't do well, and it like needs to snowball and just doesn't do that. Maybe in low MMRs you can still stomp, but otherwise not very good. And then Huskar, an okay hero. He's kind of been on the rise. He was very, very bad after some nerfs. Now he's sort of back a little bit, but mostly as a mid hero. This hero's really not a carry anymore. So that's why I still kept him on the list, because he was on the list before, but he's just not a carry. So don't pick this hero as a carry. Probably pick him as a mid. You could maybe even pick him almost as an off lane before you pick him as a carry. So yeah, just don't pick him as a carry, more as a mid hero. So that's the F tier. And that is the tier list. That is the carry tier list for patch 7.32D. And Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think that some heroes should be higher, lower, what you think about certain heroes in the meta right now. Let me know what you think about this S and A tier, if you think things should be switched up. I definitely think that things could, you can make arguments for different heroes being at different spots, especially up here. But in any case, let me know what you guys think, and then for the rest of the week, we will get a new position every day for the rest of the week. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you like the videos and want to see more. And as always, you can go to my Discord if you want to join there. Go to my Patreon if you want to support me and see more videos like this into the future, or if you want coaching there as well. So as always, guys, thanks, and I'll see you next time.